uncovering our story, discovering the truth, learning from our past for the present and future. Only here at Philippine History News. Good day mga kababayan. I am Ginger Ann Cruz, your news anchor for today, Friday, April 17, 2026. Today's headline focuses on land and agrarian reform in the Philippines, about what it is and its history. Precious Cruz, please enlighten us about the land and agrarian reform in the country.
So what is land and agrarian reform? The term land reform refers to a broad range of programs and policies typically implemented by the government intended to improve the management and use of land for the benefit of the people. The state takes over lands owned by large landowners with compensation to transfer the land to small farmers or workers who do not own any land. Its objective is to transform the agricultural system to foster equity and increase productivity. The term agrarian reform, on the other hand, involves the modernization of agricultural practices and enhancing the standard of living for all members of the agricultural community. It comprises a range of assistance for agricultural education, cooperative establishment, the manufacturing and retailing of agricultural products, the development of agri-based industries, and more. Back to you, Ginger.
Thank you, Precious. Colonization led to land concentration among a few landlords, or Caste 6, granting them significant power over the nation's social and economic dynamics. They have exerted influence on their tenants, dictating political voting choices and affecting political action to preserve the existing status quo. Let us learn more about the history of land and reforms in the Philippines. Zoe Literte.
Before the Spanish colonial era, the Filipinos of the time exercised a feudal social system. The nobility or the maharlikas comprises the datus or the chiefs, followed by the timawas or the freemen who did not owe tributes or taxes to the datus, but were obligated to follow them in wars, providing their own weapons and gear, building their houses, and planting their rice fields. While aliping na mamahay or the serfs worked the land of their datu or maharlika master. They equally shared their agricultural produce with their master and maintained their own houses and private property, which could be passed down to their descendants and had rights over their movable possessions. On the other hand, aliping sagigilit or the slaves were the property of their master, served in both agricultural and domestic roles, and could be sold, particularly if captured or born into servitude. The economy was primarily subsistence-based, with rice acting as a medium of exchange as there was no established currency.
Thank you, Literte, for giving us a glimpse of what it was like during the time of Spanish pre-colonization in our country. Now, let us hear about the Spanish colonization era. Julie Manalastas.
During the Spanish colonial era, lands were split and distributed to encourage Spanish settlement or to reward the soldiers who served around. These lands were referred to as encomiendas. The royal government granted the encomendero the authority to collect tribute from the Indios or native in the manner and quantity specified in exchange for these services. Initially, the native population benefited more from the encomenda system than did the encomenderos. So they could not be referred to as lords because they were seen as native protectors, advocates, and educators. However, the system devolved into power abuse when the encomenderos began to collect tribute that effectively turned into land rents, transforming the natives into tenants. The colonial government took the place of the datus, and the datus became the so-called cabeza de barangay, supposedly having power in the community, but the proprietors of the estates held the authority. The Dominican friars leased their land to both local people and mestizos, called inquilinos, who paid the fixed rent for the land they farmed. However, the inquilinos took advantage of this arrangement by selling the estates as though they were their own. They therefore earned more than the estate's owners without significant labor. This practice led to a system where native agricultural entrepreneurs had to lease land creating exploitative conditions for tenant dealers. Despite two royal decrees in 1880 and 1884 requiring landholders to secure titles, no meaningful steps were taken, even though Spanish authorities were aware of these harmful activities. And only a small number of peasants who were the cacique class seized the opportunity to file petitions for free titles, since the vast majority either had no understanding of the law or thought the process was too difficult to out and step with custom, causing the actual tillers to be driven from their land or forced to rent from the caciques. The Spanish land practices effectively ceased with the Philippine Revolution in 1898, as Spanish landowners began selling their lands in response to the changing political landscape. That's all for the Spanish era.
Thank you, Manalastas, Sean, Alan, Miguel. Please tell us about the time of the First Philippine Republic.
As soon as the First Republic of the Philippines was established in January 1899, President Emilio Aguinaldo's administration announced its plan to seize huge estates, particularly the so-called friar lands. The declaration was contained in the Malolos Constitution. As stated, all the lands, buildings, and other properties belonging to the religious corporation in these islands shall be understood to have been restored to the Filipino state. However, Aguinaldo's plan was never carried out because the republic was short-lived.
Thank you, Sean. Jana Onan, please tell us about the time of the American regime.
What is land and agrarian reform? The term land reform refers to a broad range of programs and policies typically implemented by the government intended to improve the management and use of land for the benefit of the people. The state takes over lands owned by large landowners with compensation to transfer the land to small farmers or workers who do not own any land. Its objective is to transform the agricultural system to foster equity and increase productivity. The term agrarian reform, on the other hand, involves the modernization of agricultural practices and enhancing the standard of living for all members of the agricultural community. It comprises a range of assistance for agricultural education, cooperative establishment, the manufacturing and retailing of agricultural products, the development of agro-based industries, and more.
Thank you, Onan. Indeed, colonization had a significant impact on the land and agrarian reform in the Philippines. Don't change your station. We will be right back and tackle more about the history of land and agrarian reform in the country after these reminders.
namin alam kung magkakaroon ba talaga kami kahit kapiraso lang sa lupang sinasaka namin.
Ang Department of Agrarian Reform ay isang ahensya ng gobyerno na nagtataguyod at nagpapatupad ng agrarian reform tungo sa pagpapabuti ng kalidad ng buhay ng mga tillers at landowners.
Talk about the history of the land and agrarian reform during the Spanish pre-colonization period, Spanish colonization era, the First Philippine Republic, and the American regime. Now, for the Commonwealth period, Del Carmen, please tell us about it.
By the time the Commonwealth was established under Manuel Alcazar, land tenure issues had fueled armed dissatisfaction, notably exemplified by Pedro Calosa's Color Room Revolt in 1931 at Tayug, Pangasinan, and Benigno Ramos' Sactal Revolt in 1935 at Cabuyang, Laguna. In response to this unrest, Quezon implemented a program on social justice to support the tenants' plight and directly confront the agrarian crisis. His administration enacted reforms to enhance land tenure laws that provide more freedom to both landowners and tenants, facilitating tenancy contracts that adhere to legal standards and morals while mandating compulsory arbitration for agrarian disputes and halting tenant evictions. Quezon's initiatives also included the expropriation of large estates and organized settlement of unutilized public lands, particularly in Mindanao, managed by National Land Settlement Administration. These efforts were rooted in the commitment to social justice articulated in 1935 Constitution, which emphasized the state's responsibility in promoting the welfare and economic security of its citizens. Additionally, the Rice Share Tenancy Act of 1933 established a 50-50 profit-sharing framework between landowners and tenants, further reshaping agricultural relationships.
Thank you, Del Carmen. Jerica Padrinao, educate us on what happened during the Third Philippine Republic.
Under Ramon Magsaysay's governance, 3 Republic Acts concerning land and agrarian reform were accomplished. First, the Republic Act No. 1166 established the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration, or NARA. It was successful in enticing rebels back to a peaceful existence by providing them with farms and homelands in the NARA settlement in Palawan and several areas of Mindanao. Second, the Republic Act No. 1199, or the Agricultural Tenancy Act, established the courts of agrarian relations and gave tenants security of tenure and the option to switch from a shared tenancy to a leasehold. Third, the Republic Act No. 1400, or the Land Reform Act, allowed for the purchase of large tenanted rice and corn lands of more than 200 hectares for individuals and 600 hectares for corporation. During Diosdado Macapagal's administration, Republic Act No. 3844, or the Agricultural Land Reform Code, was passed. It eliminated shared tenancy, established leasehold, gave tenants farmers the lands of preemption and redemption, and established a judicial system for agrarian cases, and integrated marketing, extension, and supervised credit for services to farmer beneficiaries.
Thank you, Padrino, for the time of martial law in the Fourth Republic period. Centano.
On October 21, 1972, President Marcos enacted PD 27 shortly after proclaiming martial law, aiming to liberate farmers from tenancy constraints on rice and corn lands. The decree abolished leasehold arrangements, granting dealers automatic ownership after amortization. Key features of land distribution under PD 27 involved selecting rice and corn areas due to social unrest tied to tenancy. The decree also addressed financing by setting a moderate land value, allowing dealers to compensate the landowners directly or through a three-way arrangement. Coverage includes all private tenanted agricultural lands over 7 hectares. Beneficiaries are bona fide tenant farmers of private rice and corn agricultural lands, benefiting a fixed economic size farm of 3 hectares of irrigated land and 5 hectares of non-irrigated. No landowners may retain up to 7 hectares if actively cultivating. Subsequent directives like Letter of Instruction 143 mandate land transfers from DAR determine absentee farmers by the landowners. Which other sources of income? Which Letter of Instruction 474 permits tenanted areas of 7 hectares or less fall under PD 27. If landowners have other profitable, agricultural, or urban properties from which they receive adequate income to support themselves and their families.
Thank you, Sanchano, for the last part of learning of the history of land and agrarian reform. Cristina Sayo. Tell us about the achievement of agrarian reform under the Fifth Republic.
Formalized by Republic Act 6657, also known as the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, signed on June 10, 1988, which governs agrarian reform implementation, and existing laws consistent with the Act, such as RA 3844 and PD 27, were acknowledged to have only supplementary effect, while Executive Order Number 1298 was issued to strengthen the DAR as a primary agency overseeing farming. The law was established after significant debate and pressure from various interest groups, and it became effective on June 10, 15, 1988. Post-enactment, several measures were initiated to ensure effective implementation of CARB. In June 1990, President Aquino aimed to strengthen the CARB through 3 executive orders. Firstly, Executive Order Number 405 assigned to Land Bank of the Philippines with the primary responsibility for land valuation. Executive Order Number 406, which highlighted the importance of CARB in the government's effort in accelerating agro-industrial development in rural areas, mandated that implementing agencies align their programs with CARB, form CARB teams from national to municipal levels, and identified and prioritized 24 strategic operating provinces, or SOE, while ensuring program implementation across other provinces. Thirdly, Executive Order Number 407 instructed all government entities, including financial institutions and corporations, to transfer all suitable agricultural lands to the DARC for CARB coverage. Additionally, the 1987 Constitution, ratified on February 2, 1987, includes several provisions specifically addressing agrarian reform. That's all for the history of land and agrarian reform. Back to you, Ginger.
Thank you, Christina, and our news reporters. Indeed, we have learned a lot about land and agrarian reform and its history. Again, this is Philippine History News. Good day, mga kababayan.